Rusty Hardin is Adrian Peterson's attorney. He joins us now. Are you involved in the appeal, Rusty?
I am not.
Okay, so that's just the NFL Players Association?
It is.
Why is he not playing this weekend?
Well, because clearly the NFL wants to make a point at his expense that I think is beyond anything that's fair or legitimate. But they've decided that they want a six-game suspension, which is half his year's salary in addition to him already been out 8 weeks. Or 8 games, rather.
Are we looking at Adrian Peterson through the prism of Ray Rice with the punishment or what is viewed as lack thereof? Therefore, there's an over-punishment for Adrian Peterson.
I think clearly so. The grand jury that heard this case originally heard from Adrian for over 3.5 hours, where he voluntarily appeared, cooperated with everybody, and they initially decided not to indict him. And then that was on a Thursday, and then on Monday or Tuesday, the TMZ came out with the Ray Rice video, and that Thursday, the same grand jury decided to reconsider the case and then returned an indictment. And then after the prosecutors looked at it fully, they decided that it wasn't child abuse and that they recommended a misdemeanor, which a Class A assault, which is causing any pain to anyone in Texas, and made a recommendation that we thought fairly disposed of everything, with Adrian accepting responsibility. And we hoped and thought that he'd be eligible to get back on the field and play.
Is he being monitored?
Well, he's on probation. He will be during the term of the period. And he's on probation, and he'll be drug tested, and he's agreed to undergo counseling and do family parenting classes, and so he's already been to talk to a psychologist for 6 hours or so. He Dan, the problem here is everyone agrees that any harm to any child is wrong. My wife taught preschool 4-year-olds for 18 years and so, and obviously no one is trying to minimize any harm to a child. But Adrian's accepted responsibility here for a mistake while he was imposing discipline that he thought he had a right to do when a child did something that might harm somebody else, and so on. And the problem is when you get caught up in this flood of publicity and all, and the NFL was embarrassed by the way they handled the Ray Rice thing initially, and now they're beating their chest with a policy that didn't even exist at the time Adrian was disciplining his child. So they make up a new policy, they make up new rules, they apply it to somebody's past conduct when the rules were not in effect, and they want to punish a guy, put him out for a whole year.
Is he considering suing in the NFL?
No, I haven't even thought of it. I think the union and others will deal with the NFL through the irregular appeal process. I hope it gets out of Mr. Goodell's hands and goes to an independent arbitrator, and I trust and hope when that happens, people will find out that this was an arbitrary procedure and an unfair punishment. He's
Rusty Hardin, Adrian Peterson's attorney, joining us Dan Patrick's show. What did you think when you saw the pictures of that 4-year-old boy's injuries?
Oh, like everyone. You just cringe. And then when you find out how it happened, which was with a switch, not a branch or anything, and the switch wrapped around the front, and that caused some injuries, and you cringe. Any parent, any person does. And Adrian felt badly as soon as he realized what had happened.
But why did he say he was still going to do that, Rusty?
Because he believes he has he didn't intend that he was going to go and inflict those kind of injuries. That was never intended. But he believes, and this is a parent's decision in a lot of ways, that there are limits, obviously. But he truly believes that he is the person of discipline and accomplishment that he's had in spite of everything because of the way he was raised. And so he believes there are millions of parents in this country who feel the same way. That doesn't mean there are no limits. And this particular incident crossed over, not with intention, and he made a mistake, and he's paid tremendously for it. But for the NFL then to decide what they think is appropriate punishment or so, in addition to whatever the criminal justice system says, I just think is wrong. Particularly, I heard right before on the lead-in, what they want is a fair process. This is a deal of the NFL making up the rules as they go along. They got caught because they originally did something they thought was right, and then when they got the hand caught in the cookie jar, they lied about what they knew, and Adrian is now paying the price as they try to correct their mistakes of the past, and it's just wrong.
Who told Adrian that he was going to be able to, this was going to be time served, that he that was going to be used as time served, and obviously it's not going to be.
I don't know that anybody did. I wasn't part of those conversations. I can't say. I think that's what everybody hoped.
Well, the NFL Players Association, DeMar Smith said that yesterday, that they knew who it was in the commissioner's office who said that it would be time served.
Okay. So that's just something I'm not aware of.
Okay. What's Adrian been doing the last 2 months?
Well, he's been going stir crazy. I mean, he works out about 3 times a day. Probably if they tested him, if he ever got back on the field, according to the NFL, it's not going to be this entire year. But, you know, he wanted – look, he took this plea recommendation rather than a trial the first week in December because he had this deep hope and belief he'd get back on the field. If he had gone through a trial, the NFL would have been, you know, it would have just been bad for everyone. In his case, he wanted to put it behind him. He wanted to resume a relationship with his son. He wanted to get back and play football, and he wanted to acknowledge to everybody that he was responsible for making a mistake. He just didn't think that the NFL would go as far as it has.
Has he been around his son?
No, he hasn't. You know, and that's where this thing really belonged, as far as I'm concerned, Dan, and that is with the social services, child protective services. They've got petitions up in Minnesota. They're going to want to monitor it and see. And at the end of the day, what everybody's going to find out, this man is not the kind of man that abuses a child. He made a mistake in disciplining him, and he deeply regrets it. But he has a very good relationship with his son. He wants to continue it. And the final thing is, what amazes me is the NFL, I don't know that they ever talked to the mother, because if they had talked to the mother, they would find out what she said publicly. She didn't want any additional punishment. She believes he's been punished enough. She wants them to be able to resume a normal relationship and go back to work. The NFL wants to take half of his year's salary.
Why is Adrian not doing interviews?
I think, you know, originally we didn't do it because when criminal cases are pending, you generally don't. When I was a prosecutor for over 15 years, I didn't like it if the defendant was out talking to the media while we were trying to decide what to do with the case.
And what about now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have any control. I think he will ultimately, but I think other lawyers are representing him now through the appeal process, and they'll make that decision.
Rusty, thanks for joining us. I know it's a busy day. We appreciate your time.
All right, take care.
All right, Rusty Hardin, Adrian Peterson's attorney.